Cloud. Okay, you're connected.
All right. All right. Hey, good evening. My name is George O'Neill. I'm the chair for the Thompson Inland Wetlands Commission. I'm calling the August 11th, 2020 meeting of the Inland Wetlands Commission to order at 7 p.m. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, this meeting is being held electronically using a teleconferencing application called Zoom. So we're operating under the following procedures. So just bear with me here while I read through them. The session is being recorded both for audio and visual content and is under the control of a Zoom host, in this case Marie, or later perhaps Amy. To ensure sound quality, the default rule for this meeting is that everyone will remain on mute. Commissioners and staff will generally remain on mute except when speaking or voting, and will generally be keeping video of themselves on throughout the meeting. Applicants and members of the public should feel free to leave their video on or off. However, they will be asked to turn on their video when speaking. If video is not available for you, you will not be precluded from speaking at the appropriate time and may listen to the meeting. During this meeting, everyone is asked to state their name each and every time they speak. Please use the raise your hand feature to let me know, or the host of the meeting know that you've raised your hand to speak. Members of the public may only speak during the portion of the agenda established for citizens' comments on agenda items. For individuals representing applicants, permittees, and violators listed in the agenda and their representatives, if you are speaking at this meeting and have a document to submit to the Commission, which was not distributed in advance of the meeting with the rest of the materials, please indicate that you wish to submit the document. You will need to hold it up to the camera so that the Commission and all members of the public may view it. In addition, you'll be required to email an electronic version of the document in PDF format, or take a photograph of it and email it to the Wetlands agent at email address wetlands@thompsonct.org. She'll include it in the permanent record of the Commission. If a member of the public tries to communicate outside of the citizens' comments on agenda items portion of the meeting, or if any person creates an audio or video disruption, they may be manually ejected from this Zoom meeting by the host at my request. I'm the chairman, and I conduct this meeting. We'll adhere to we're fairly informal in this commission. However, we must have order. So, covered the basics. I will now call the agenda, the roll call, rather. Let me find my agenda list. Call to order, roll call. Commissioners Obert.
Here. I'm going to change the video because I've had problems with it cutting out completely. So you're just going to see a picture of me from now on.
All right. So I understand you'll be using audio and not video, at least for part of the meeting. Commissioner Roach.
Correct.
Present.
Commissioner Chapin. I know she was here a moment ago. Diane?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I'm George O'Neill, the chairman. Inland Wetlands agent. Speaker, there you go, unmute.
Here. Marla Butts.
Okay, are there any of the commissioners I've not recognized? I take it none. All right. Appointment of alternates.
I make a motion that we seek the alternate for voting purposes.
Okay. Alternates are so seated. Action on minutes from the previous meeting. Are there any? Obviously, the agenda has been posted. It's a public record. Everyone can download it. Throughout this portions of this commission meeting, we will switch to the video, and I'll put it up. But are there any questions about the minutes of the previous meeting, July 14th, 2020?
No, I have none.
Okay, no changes, no revisions. The minutes will stand as filed and recorded. Okay, moving on to the next item. The citizens' comments on agenda items. And I'm referring to the current agenda. I see somebody raising their hand. Liz Thompson, is that it? You have to unmute your mic, though. Or mute it. Yeah, unmute it. Are you trying to speak, Ms. Thompson? Yes. Okay. So you have to unmute it. There's a little in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. You should see a little mic, and just click it. It's frustrating. I can see she's trying to. You see in the left-hand. Put your cursor to the lower left-hand corner of your monitor, and there's a little line through your mic. You want to click it, or wait a minute, she says.
Come on, Liz.
She's seeking technical assistance, I see. You have to.
Okay. Whew.
All right, so you were patient here, okay?
Thank you. You were patient with me.
So if you would just state your name, address, you know, as I outlined
Okay.
earlier. This is the public comments on agenda items that are on this agenda.
Right. Liz Thompson. I'm a seasonal resident at 39 Center Street on Little Pond. I have a couple of questions.
Okay, we can take general questions.
Yes, general. The original application for the Max Baer property, I believe it was
20022, the on
the
today's
original
agenda.
one. The original one. Yes. Were there violations of that original application? It was my understanding that the original application allowed for removal of the existing structure, but not clear cutting of the lot. So my question is, was there a violation? Was my understanding correct? Or was that original application allowing the earth moving and the clear cutting?
Okay, so I think we understand the question, and I'm going to ask that our wetlands agent unmute her mic and perhaps address it. Important to note that, you know, we can address current items that are on this agenda, and I understand your question really to be a violation. Are there potential violations on the pending application, correct?
Would you like me to? I can reword that if you would like.
I think we've got that. I think we're good. Okay. Marla, is that something we can address?
Yes. Originally, there was a request of building permit application to demolish the structure, the cottage. And because there wasn't going to be any grading work associated with that, I signed off on the building permit to demolish the building. The building was demolished without any grading work. Subsequent to the building being demolished, there was activity that got started. There was no application pending. Notices of violation were issued. And subsequent to that, a wetlands agent approval application was submitted. And at last month's meeting, it was converted to an individual permit by the Inland Wetlands Commission. So there was no pre-existing inland wetlands permit or approval before the notices of violation were issued. There was only a building permit that was issued for demolition of the old cottage.
Okay, well, if we're going to.
Your mic is muted now, Ms. Thompson. There you go.
So if we're going to have our comments apply to just what is on the agenda this month, my comment would be, I'm just wondering what the trust level would be that the application 20022 is going to be followed without additional violations that have occurred in the past. I guess that's what I would like to say. My next comment would be, well, it would be about the tree debris that was promised to be removed in June that's still in the water. And here it is August, so I don't know. I would just ask the commission members to think long and hard on application 20022, considering what's happened in the past with previous applications for that particular piece of property.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the challenge that we're running into here, and the comments on the current agenda, pretty defined. It's a goal to, an opportunity for members of the public to, interact with the commissioners, and for ask procedural questions like you have, or bring up, potential violations to the commission's attention, that's how I'm interpreting your comments, right? You're thinking there's a potential violation out there. As far as, pending applications, this wouldn't be the proper, venue for it unless there's a public meeting. But your comments are well taken.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Very good. All right. We've got any other citizens' comments?
Hello. How do I get acknowledged here?
Is that Mr. Nelowak?
Oh, yeah.
Nelowak. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
My wife and I live over on 42 Jezerski Lane, and I do have two questions to ask. One is pertaining to Mr. Bear's property over on Thompson Road. Last month we saw a building plan or a plot plan that showed a revetment that was going to be constructed at the bottom of his property. My question about the revetment is it going to be in the water, or is it going to be at his property line? And the reason I ask that question is because on the map, I don't see a property line at the water's edge. So I'm curious as to whether or not the revetment is going to be strictly on his property, or is it going to be in the water?
Okay, it's a technical question. As I understand it, you're looking for, clarification on the.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because if it's in the water, then it's not on his property. So how can he construct a revetment that's not on his property?
Or this should be talked about during the application with the engineer.
Yeah.
You should get your answer then.
Perhaps you could. This will be addressed as we move forward.
Okay.
Right.
Because I mean, how will we know what the status is of that?
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll have to address it at during the discussion of the application.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. So
Thank you.
I have another question that pertains, and maybe you don't want to take this question, but it pertains more to Little Pond itself.
Oh.
Well, if you have a potential violation, we'd be interested in hearing about it. Or if there's a procedural question you have, that's what your comments are about,
Well,
or it's on the agenda.
Yeah, it really doesn't, it could or could not be a violation. It has to do with, as you know, the Little Pond is the headwaters for the 5 Mile River. What you may not know is that downstream from Little Pond, there are several areas that get blocked by beaver population and so forth. My question is, whose responsibility is it to keep the waterway open so that the water flows freely from Little Pond through the 5 Mile River?
That's an excellent question. It's a real technical one.
I know, I'm sorry that they're that, but
That's good. No, that's why we have our inland wetlands agent to assist on some of these procedural questions and potential violations.
Butters.
You want me to answer the question, George?
Yes, would you please, or generally, I guess, in a general way?
I think what I will need to do is, there is legal questions on this. There are some statutes on obstruction of drainage. They're very old statutes, but they do and could apply to the situation with the beaver dams, where the property owners that have the obstruction on it can be held responsible for removing those obstructions. And as you know, there are 2 town road crossings that the town, Zersky Lane and Sandam Road. And then there are obstructions that are down past the old trolley track into Jerry's Swamp, which is a different property owner. So I think the best response that I can give to you is something in writing, perhaps after it's been vetted through legal counsel, to give you a proper answer that you're looking for. Because the obstruction of drainage statute is so old, I don't know how applicable it is to current conditions. But it is in the statute if you look up obstruction of drainage.
Yeah. Fair question, not an easy answer, of course, you know, depends, I guess, like a lot of things.
well, I just want to open it up so that there is discussion about it. And I thank you for taking the question.
Okay. Thank you very much. Then moving on, let's not forget to mute our mics. That concludes the citizens' comments on agenda items. And going on to applications, old applications, the first on our list today is WAA 20004, Richard T. Odette, 50 Wrightson Drive, Assessors Map 143, Block 17, Lot 18. Construct a 20 by 24 shed on piers in the 100-foot upland review area for aquatic reservoir. Stamped received on 2/5/2020, under review pending NDDH approval, and pending roof runoff.
Alabad speaking. In the documents that were posted, you have a copy of the NDDH approval. It's I believe it's a B1A, B100A approval. So the outstanding issue still remains is how the drainage off the roof will be handled and not cause erosion of the embankment. And Mr. Audette sent me an email and was asking for some advice or help as to how he could handle it. And I sent him an email back that said, I suggested that he get a design for a roof runoff collection system that will cause any runoff to be released over the embankment to the lake as sheet flow, and to establish and maintain vegetative cover that has a well-developed root system adapted to gravelly soil conditions that would hold the soil in place as water flows over it, particularly during spring thaw conditions. This might be accomplished by constructing a roof runoff collection system that releases the runoff to a stone-lined discharge trench located near the top of the slope immediately west of the proposed shed, with a level spreader for the discharge over the slope. I gave him some suggestions also to perhaps contact the Eastern Connecticut Conservation District. They might be able to provide him advice on the design. And that is where it stands right now. I'm still waiting to hear back from Mr. Audette as to how he intends to handle the roof runoff. So that will be continued pending.
Thank you, Marla. Commissioners, any questions?
Not for me, no.
All right, I did post a copy of that response from the NDDH for everyone to review. Okay, moving on to the next item. Stop sharing this. WAA 20009, Hallett T. Merrick, 0 Plum Road, Assessors Map 85, Block 52, Lot 12, construction of a single-family home. septic system and portion of home proposed in 100-foot upland review area, stamped receive on 4/13/2020, under review, pending receipt of additional information.
Marla Butt speaking. A letter was sent May 4th, 2020 to Mr. Merrick and asked for a full-scale signed drawing by a professional engineer. I also asked for a copy of the Northeast District Department of Health's letter approving the design of the septic system. Since that letter was sent, Mr. Halleck has obtained the services of KWP Associates and professional engineer Woodis. Bruce Woodis is here in the meeting, and he can tell you where he stands right now with that. And I believe he's working on a design. And the town is also requiring additional modifications to Plum Road. Mr. Woodis?
Yes, hi, thank you. So just to bring everyone up to speed, we prepared a site plan for a previous client whose name was Brent Mann, who owned the property. So the property has been bought by Hal Merrick, and he wishes to build a home for himself out on this property. And we're in the process of making the site plan work for him. It still has to go to the health department for approval. The town has also informed Mr. Merrick that he's going to have to improve the unimproved section of Plum Road to his property to town standards, which he has agreed to do. So we're in the process of preparing plans for that. We don't believe that that any part of the roadway is would be within the regulated area for wetlands, but the lot itself does have wetlands on it, and the proposed building construction and septic system will be in the regulated area. So we're requesting, well, we don't need an extension at this point, but it will be another month or so before the health department has a chance to review and do their part, and we can have the revised plans to the Wetlands Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Any commissioner questions or comments?
George, I noticed Fran Morano is now here on the commission.
Hi, Fran. Welcome.
Hello, sorry for the delay.
No
Had a
worries.
little difficulty.
Excuse me, Charlie Obert here.
Yes, sir.
Will we
Obert.
see this? We're expecting to see the site plan for our next meeting? Question
Yes,
is to the engineer.
Mr. Woods.
That is our expectation, that you will have the site plan for your next meeting.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Nothing further on that old application. We'll move on to IWA 20011, James Jasmine, 518 Brandy Hill Road, Assessors Map 143, Block 16, Lot 37. An after-the-fact application for partial demolition of retaining wall and construction of a new retaining wall and aquatic reservoir. Stamped received 5/6/2020. Statutorily received on 5/14/2020. Marla?
Because J&D Engineering was having problems getting any response from DEP regarding their position on the wall, I sent a letter on July 16th to Commissioner Katie Dykes, the Commissioner of the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. I sent it electronically and then also followed it up by US mail. That letter is in your packet of posted documents, and I asked for a response by August 1st. In response to that letter, I got communications from Yvonne Bolton, who is one of the bureau chiefs. And I had a discussion with her, Bob Hannon, who is an attorney, and also Brian Floret. And we talked about, she had questions about what constituted flowage rights and what DEP had as flowage rights, and would this wall affect those flowage rights? And they needed more time to research that. They weren't sure what their position was going to be. They acknowledged that they don't know who owns the bottom, but that they do have flowage rights. That email thread is in the packet of documents that I've sent to you. And I sent them an email basically confirming trying to confirm our conversations, and I did not receive any reply back. Yesterday, I sent another email asking if they could at least give me a timeline with which they would give me some kind of answer, and I haven't gotten a response back. They are all working from home because of the COVID pandemic, and so I will continue to pursue this, but right now I don't have an answer on their position.
Just as
So
a
I would
reference,
not
I did
recommend,
post it.
yeah,
Sorry, go
so
ahead.
I would not recommend making any decisions on this application at this time. And I'll continue to pursue contact with DEP.
Okay, so the fundamental issue has to do is who has the ownership of the the pond reservoir.
The question is does DEP have an objection? Does DEP have a position about the wall? Because if they were objecting to it as a right, having a right for flowage, then it might not be appropriate for the commission to render a positive decision on the application. If DEP comes back and says they have no objection, then it would be up to the commission to decide if they wanted to grant that application. If DEP comes back and says, because we're still waiting for the natural diversity database information to come in, that hasn't come in unless Daniel Blanchette got something from DEP recently, but as far as I know, he hasn't received anything. So there's still those two issues hanging out there, and until those are resolved, as long as the commission has more time to deal with it, as the governor has granted 90 additional days for rendering a decision on an application, the commission still has time, because this application was statutorily received on May 14th. So you have the 65 days plus the 90 that the commissioner gave.
Okay.
I mean, that the governor gave.
I see. All right,
So
then.
I would table this till next meeting.
Okay, we'll move on then. Unless there's questions by any of the commissioners.
None for me.
Yeah. I do have one. Is there a statutory provision that would, if the commission, the state fails to respond, DEP fails to respond, is there an automatic approval of some sort that is built into any of these statutes?
No.
I see that. I often see that in different contracts. If you don't respond in so many days, then it's assumed that you agreed.
The answer to your question is no, not in the Wetlands Act. There is no automatic approval for failure to act. There is, I believe, under planning and zoning.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about zoning, but I think planning.
All right. So we'll defer this. And, I'm sorry.
Did Bear get that project approved by zoning?
I'm sorry. Who's speaking?
I can ask the Wetland Commission that. And ask Cindy done that.
All right. I think that's an inadvertent communication. All right. So we'll put that until next meeting, next month. Moving on to number 4, IWA 20022, Mark Bear, 1227 Thompson Road, Assessor's Map 116, Block 24. I'm sorry, Block 16, lot. I'm losing my lines here. Block 24, Lot 10. Construct house, well, septic, driveway, and associated grading. Stamp received on 6/16/2020. Converted to individual permit application. statutorily received on July 14th, 2020. Okay. Sorry about that.
Marla Butt speaking. I think the engineer for Mr. Beer should provide some information on the current status of the application, answer the questions regarding the property ownership boundary line for the water. And I have a couple of questions. Wanted to know whether or not they have a response on the NDDH septic design, what the status of that is. And I also have a question about procedure, construction methodology. So I believe Mr. Blanchett is muted right now.
Good evening, everyone.
This is an update.
Ms. Blanchett, please, do you have some information for us?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do. My name is Daniel Blanchett. I'm with J&D Civil Engineers. As you know, the application was received at the last meeting, so I didn't really speak at all. I'll give a short presentation. As you know, the project is located on the west side of Little Pond, just a couple lots north of Rowley's Variety on 193. The property is relatively large for Little Pond. It's over 2 acres, and it has 500 feet of road frontage, almost 400 feet of shoreline. The site previously had a small 2-bedroom cottage and an old septic system, a paved driveway. Those were demolished by Ron DeRocher over the winter. In May, my client received some sort of verbal authorization for tree cutting. And unfortunately, there was some miscommunication along the way, whether between him and his contractor. I'm not sure. The contractor was removing stumps. And that's what caused the earth disturbance, the potential for erosion. He certainly wasn't supposed to do that. And so that's what caused Marla to issue the notice of violation. At this point, work has been stopped on the site pretty much since early June. Silt fence was installed at Marla's request to prevent any erosion in the interim. Now, my plan was submitted to NDDH on June 17th, again, after these notices of violation came up. On July 20th, about a month later, I received a letter from NDDH requesting a couple minor revisions. Nothing actually had to be changed. They wanted more information about the current septic system and more information about the neighbor to the south, their septic tank location. Those revisions have been made. The plans have been resubmitted to NDDH, and I expect their approval shortly. In terms of the health code, my plan does comply with all the regulations. You know, I'm supposed to be at least 75 feet from my septic to a neighbor's well. Our closest well is 110 feet, so we meet that. The system will have a pump, which is a little bit unusual. Usually you want gravity for your sewage. In this case, due to site constraints, to be farther from the water and reduce any chance of pollution, the septic will actually be pumped uphill towards the road. And the well will be located near the water. Let's see. There will be a paved driveway. The existing paved driveway is 18% in some spaces. That's too steep, steeper than would be allowed by the driveway ordinance. But we're not going to modify that part. We're only going to change the bottom third of the driveway. That part will be much flatter. It will meet the ordinance. We're going to construct a 4-foot retaining wall above the house, closer to the road, again, to kind of make the grading work and to stabilize everything. You can see it's an extremely steep site, just like the sites around it. In a lot of places, it's like a 2-to-1 slope, you know, which is, you can imagine, almost 50%. So that makes its own grading challenges. The final grades will result in nothing steeper than a 2-to-1 slope, which is considered stable for pretty much any soil, any condition. It's not going to wash out suddenly. We will have temporary erosion control blankets installed on the slope while grass and turf are being established. As you can understand, erosion is a real concern on this site with the steep pitch. The other interesting thing that we're doing to prevent erosion and treat stormwater, we're actually going to infiltrate a good portion of the runoff from the roof and from the paved driveway. So most of the impervious surface, that rainwater will be infiltrated underground. This is something that is actually becoming more common in Massachusetts. Some towns require it under certain conditions, under the wetland regulations. Not many people do it in Thompson, but I think in this case, sound engineering judgment dictates that it's prudent. So there will be 3 separate dry wells. I actually had, unfortunately, I had emailed at the very last minute. I'm sorry, Marla. I had emailed you an updated plan this morning. It has a 3rd dry well, just to make everything a little bit better. And once I had a better idea for the gutter lines, I added that next to the garage. So kind of in between the 2 others, those 2 exactly, in between those, there will be a 3rd one.
Something like that?
Correct, yep. We didn't do detailed hydraulic calculations or hydrologic calculations for this. We used a methodology similar to what Massachusetts uses. And so basically the system is designed to handle 1 inch of rain instantaneously. So if you get 1 inch of rain in an hour, 2 hours, which is the most common type of storm or less, all those it's going to capture and infiltrate. It's roughly equivalent to being sized for the 2-year storm. It's not exactly correlated, but it's very close. The 2-year storm, you would get 3.5 inches of rain in 24 hours. The peak flow would be 1.5 inch per hour. And so I feel my system probably is pretty close to meeting that demand. So for very heavy rainfalls, there will still be some sheet flow into the river, but we're really trying to treat anything that could be polluted or that could be too warm. It's always an issue in the summer. You don't want to raise up the lake temperature with a lot of driveway water going in. So I'm pretty excited about that. That's a really neat feature. Along the shoreline, we're proposing to construct a rock revetment. There's a good detail of this on the 2nd sheet, George, if you don't mind.
Sure, let me just move down here.
You don't have the 2nd sheet
Hold on, I'll do
on
something.
the screen. I didn't put the 2nd sheet.
Oh, you didn't? Okay,
I
no
can
wonder I
hold
can't
up.
find it.
Let me hold it up while I talk.
I don't
For
think we
next
have that
month's
one.
meeting, I'll make sure all the sheets are there.
All right,
They were posted, I believe, at the last meeting.
So I don't know if everyone can kind of see. I'm trying to hold up my map of what the revetment looks like. Basically, in lieu of a vertical block wall, which is the most common thing you see along the shoreline, we're proposing to construct a sloped, boulder-lined area. It's actually very similar to what's there now. If you go to the site now, the shoreline is very rocky with a little bit of a steep bank. What we're proposing is going to be less steep, actually. The rock revetment has a lot of advantages, especially for wildlife. The ducks, the frogs can kind of traverse that terrain as opposed to a vertical block wall. To answer the gentleman's question from earlier, the rock wall will stop at his property line. It will not extend into the lake horizontally, but vertically it will extend below the lake level for structural reasons to make it strong enough. But it's not going to encroach sideways into the lake at all. So he's not gaining any property. The lake isn't losing any real estate. So basically, really the only work that's in the water is going to be some minor excavation in the first probably 3 to 4 inches of shore. And to prevent any turbidity or any sediment from getting stirred up, we will have erosion control, probably about 1 foot, 18 inches into the water, so that would be, the area that would be contaminated when you're starting to dig it out. I guess my last comment would address the endangered species. As part of the wetlands application, we're required to notify the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection if there of the project, could there be any impact to endangered species. In this case, I actually got a response that Little Pond is known to contain something called water pennywort. And so, they kind of sent me a letter and they said, we want you to prepare a report saying, do you think this species is present? If it is present, how are you going to avoid damaging it? If it's not present, are you going to destroy its habitat and maybe prevent it from coming in? And so I went out to the site. I looked around for quite some time. The lake bed in this area is extremely rocky. There's very few aquatic plants along Mr. Bear's property. I found a little bit of pickerel weed, if you're familiar with that, but certainly none of the water pennywort, which should be very obvious at this time of year, easy to identify. And so I sent a letter back to DEEP stating the endangered species is not present. I don't believe it's a good habitat for that species. And lastly, we're not permanently damaging any of the habitat. So I feel that we have addressed that potential concern for endangered species. Do you have any other questions, Marla? I'm not sure if that covered some of them, most of them.
Marla Butt speaking. Because the application was statutorily received at last month's meeting, and there were a number of things that came to interfere with me doing a complete review, what my plan is to write down all the questions that I have that I think need to be answered, to provide you with an opportunity to provide written answers back to address those. I'll give you some examples. The septic system is a pumped septic system. You said it's a fairly large lot and it's 2 acres in size. I wondered what alternatives you had considered with putting the septic system to the north end of the lot. I know it's not flat there, and I don't know if there was a concern or from the Department of Health to put it at the north end so that it would not necessarily be pumped. Second issue I have is after Mr. Bear and Mr. Wall got the notices of violation, Mr. Wall continued to bring boulders into the property. Those boulders do not show on your plan. And those boulders are now laid on the flat spot that's right next to the water. And now I don't know how he's going to construct the revetment, how he's going to get equipment down there in order to, because he's put all the boulders in the only flat spot that there was, which is where you would gain the access for the construction of this revetment. So I'm need to get the methodology identified as to how this wall is going to be constructed. What erosion controls will actually work, since you did say that it was a very bony shoreline. What kind of, you've identified silt fence, but I don't think you can secure a silt fence in the bony shoreline. And what are the alternatives for preventing turbidity from getting into the water body? These are some of the questions, just quickly looking over the application, that I would have, so that I would try to have those questions out to you in writing within the next 2 weeks, so that you can work on those and provide answers to them. In addition, I would ask that any commission member, if they have any questions about any of the things that are on the application or on the site plans, to get them to me within the next 2 weeks, so that whatever I send to you will have all the questions of the commissioners, and even that of any of the public that is concerned about the conditions and the application. And what I would do is, if anybody sends me an email requesting a copy of the updated plans, if you've sent them to me in PDF form, or I can scan them and have them put out in PDF, then I could forward them so that I could get any comments from the public. They could come to me and I could end up checking them out and passing them on to you as appropriate, and then bringing that all back to the commission at its next meeting. Is that an acceptable proposal, George?
Well, where I stand, I think it's important that it sounds comprehensive. I walked this site. I can appreciate it's very, has a lot of challenges for the engineering side. And I know that there's a number of, citizens that are concerned about this as well. So given the date of receipt and the time allowed, I think we should be thorough and we should be, diligent in reviewing it. And I know that even in our public comments, there's concerns about all the issues here. So it makes sense to me. Do other commissioners have concerns or objections or recommendations?
That sounds reasonable.
Barbara Roach speaking. I do. I have some questions and concerns. One that at the last meeting on July 14th, it was discussed that Mr. Wall would get a letter to remove the tree debris within 30 days. There's a copy of the letter in the file that was dated August 6th. That was 3 weeks after the IWC meeting on June 14th. So my question is, why did that letter come out 3 weeks after the meeting? His tree removal period now is until September 1st, which has essentially given Mr. Wall 7 weeks from the time we discussed this on July 14th to remove the tree debris. We discussed it on June 9th on the IWC meeting. We discussed it again on the July 14th meeting. And now he doesn't have to remove the debris until the deadline of September 1st. And in hearing Mrs. Thompson's question, I take notice with that Mr. Wall and Mr. Bear have not removed the tree debris that they've promised to do on the June 9th meeting. So how can we, as a commission, how can the residents of Little Pond take solace in the fact that they will do going forward what they've promised to do for the last 2 months? So that's one of my concerns, as well as what I'm hearing from citizens that have commented in the comment section on this meeting. And he's had an extra 7 weeks to do so, and it still hasn't happened. So there just isn't, I don't believe, a level of confidence in the process going forward when on the June 9th meeting, Mr. Bear and Mr. Wall said, we want to be good citizens. We want to do what's right for the pond and the area and the environment. And it hasn't happened. That's one of my concerns. Another question, quick question I had when Daniel mentioned about the 12 to 18 inches of contamination. What kind of contamination might we be talking about?
So that would just be contamination from sediment, from dirt that's stirred up while you're trying to dig a couple inches below the water line.
Okay, so nothing additional that will go into the pond other than the rocks of the revetment?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Roach.
Obert here.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Obert.
Yes, I echo a lot of the same concerns that Barbara just shared, as well as some of those things that we heard from the residents. There is a trust factor. We were promised that certain things would be done, and they haven't been done. And so I can appreciate where the neighbors up there are saying, how can we move forward, believing that they're going to do the right thing? I understand that a lot of that is something that we can't really touch on. We can lay down the requirements, we can stipulate some things in the application, but if they're going to thumb their noses, which seems to be what's been happening, what do we do? And so I share their concern. I don't know what the answer is.
So if I understand Commissioner Roach and Commissioner Obert's comments, then would it be fair to say that this whole application is in jeopardy based on the failure to act or inactions or actions that are perhaps untoward in this particular situation?
Barbara Roach speaking. I believe that to be the case. I believe that the property owner and the contractor have shown a blatant disregard for the environment, for the pond itself, for the commission, and for the commissioners, because they have not done what they agreed to do at least 2 months ago.
Is Mr. Wall still able to speak to this? Or perhaps Mr. Blanchett, I don't know if you've been briefed on this by your client, but.
Yeah, if this is Daniel Blanchett again, if I could interject, it really wasn't clear to myself or my client, Mr. Bear, that we were supposed to remove any branches that were still in the water. You know, I mean, a lot of trees fell in the water, they were immediately pulled out. Then we got the notice of violation that said stop any work. And so Mark wanted to go pull those sticks or branches out of the water. We were under the impression that he wasn't allowed to do any work until the application was approved. So I apologize, but I don't think we can say that he's been negligent for 2 months at doing that.
Barbara Roach speaking. If we go back to the minutes of the June 9th meeting, Mr. Bear and Mr. Wall both spoke at that meeting and were well aware of the branches that were in the water. It shouldn't have been a big deal to remove that debris as it came down as good citizens of the pond. Mr. Bear is a property owner. The pond and the quality of the pond and the environment should be one of his utmost concerns. And when they got the notice of violation, the debris had already been in the water. The silt fencing was already up. It made it more difficult to remove this debris. But as Commissioner Obert just said, they kind of thumbed their noses. They said, we will do this. We want to be good citizens, but they haven't been. And this has been 2 months. This was the June 9th when they both spoke and both said, no problem, we'll get the tree debris out of the water. 2 months later, the debris is still there. It's above the top of the water in some places. It's submerged in other places, and it's a hazard.
Okay, when I was at the site about a week ago, I saw very little debris in the water. I know when Marla issued the notice of violation, there were some pictures attached with that. And at that point, yeah, there were a lot of branches in the water. If you go out there now, if you've been out there recently, and maybe someone else who's been out there, a commission member, can corroborate this, there's only a couple little twigs poking above the water. There's not a ton of debris out there.
Barbara Roach speaking. I take exception to that. I kayak to the site frequently. I kayaked to the site on this past Sunday. There are branches in the water that are submerged. Some of the ends of the branches are at least 3 to 4 inches in diameter. Branches are sticking above the water. If you ask anyone that uses the pond, kayaks, boats, whatever, they're there. So we can't say little sticks. They're sizable branches that remain in the water. Unacceptable.
So, this is Commissioner O'Neill. Do we have a solution in our experience, Marla, that can remedy the apparent, clear incongruity here between the developer, his engineer, and the needs and rights of the pond and the people? Can you think of any solutions that could work? I mean, it seems like we're headed into one direction, and there's no remedy. It doesn't seem like we're able to find a solution.
This is Commissioner Chapin. Can I just interject something quickly?
Sure.
I think going back to June, all that is true, but at the July meeting, we were discussing those trees, and it was my recollection that Mr. Bear was under the impression that he was under a stop order work, and I thought we had discussed there were trees that in between him and the neighbor, and I thought we were going to look for clarity with it. I thought essentially in July, it was discussed to stop that work until we had clarification of exactly which additional trees wanted to be removed. So maybe I'm incorrect in my memory about as far as taking from the water, but I thought we were pretty until we had definition of how this was to proceed.
Thank you.
All of us
Commissioner.
speaking. The minutes that for July 14th that were just found acceptable, if you read in this on, I believe I'm not sure, there's no page numbers here, but under Mark Baer's violation, it says, M. Butts will send letter to Mr. Wall and Mr. Baer requiring the debris to be removed within 30 days before any application approval will take place. Mr. Baer asks if he should also remove the trees near his neighbor's property line at the same time. Ms. Butts states, do not remove the trees at this time. That's on the Harger property, and wait for her to get clarification on which trees the neighbor wanted removed. So as of July 14th, Mr. Baer should have understood that the trees that were in the water were to be removed. And the fact that I didn't get the letter out in a timely fashion should not have stopped him or his contractor from removing those trees. Because I was late in getting that letter out, I felt it was necessary to give them additional time. Because if I sent it out when I did and said you have to do it within a week, I didn't feel that was enough time. And that's why I gave them to September 1st, because I knew that the Wetlands Commission was not going to render a decision on the application today because of the outstanding issues with the septic system and NDDH and some of the other questions that had risen. So the letter was sent to Mr. Wall. A copy was sent to Mr. Baer. I don't know, I haven't heard anything back. Nobody has contacted me regarding the application, regarding the trustworthiness. The commission, if it finds that the environmental impacts are acceptable, it can put whatever kinds of restrictions and conditions on it, that approval that it wants. For example, it could say no other work could begin until the revetment is completed, meaning don't let the house construction start until the wall is done. If there's a problem with the wall, then if the commission sets the conditions correctly, it can say that no work can move forward until the commission approves the conditions of the wall. If you're concerned about trust levels of having the work done properly, then you can stage it so that one piece of work has to be done and completed and found acceptable before the next piece of work can occur. And that would be only those activities that are in the upland review area. It wouldn't involve anything outside of the upland review area. So if the septic system is outside of the upland review area, and I can't recall if it is it outside of the upland review area,
Sure,
Daniel?
give me a second here.
It is. So technically, I think the septic system is not within the jurisdiction of the commission.
Charlie Obert here.
This is Commissioner Obert.
Yes, on page 8 of the packet that came out, it's got 58 pages in it. There is item C, which refers to this violation. The phrasing doesn't show up in the minutes quite as strongly as I remember, but Ms. Butts just pointed out that we did say that they should remove the debris before hold on. They should also remove the trees near, no. Well, anyway, it says in here that we wanted the trees removed before they did, before the permit was approved. And where does it say that? It's in the M. Butts and Commissioner Obert will go out and review the property next week. Commissioner Roach recommends that the debris should be removed now and the damage is done and the silt fence then be fixed and fix it. So at that point that we were talking about it, I have a clear memory of agreeing strongly and saying, yeah, let's get that part done, let's get it fixed and stabilized, and then move on. The the language is not as strong here, and I didn't read it that closely before I agreed to approve them. I do think that the minutes are adequate, but I do also think that if we were to go back and play the recording from that night, we would hear a very strongly implied request that we get this stabilized and cleaned up. That's why I was so surprised that it wasn't done.
All right, so we've heard that the applicant has felt it wasn't clear. Obviously, it's the written record doesn't support that. At the same time, you've got to develop a site that's partly developed. To your question regarding whether the septic system in its proximity to the upland review area, you can see on the screen where it is, the tank and the pumps, the chambers. Well, how would you like to proceed? I guess is where we're at here. We're sort of at we've objected to the fact that they haven't advanced more promptly. Would commissioners consider an immediate action by the applicant to say, look, get those branches, get the stuff out of the water, post haste, or is that not a adequate response? And going forward, you're going to have perhaps more rigor and more oversight.
Marla Butt speaking. George, Mr. Bear is attending this meeting. Perhaps you should ask him what his position is regarding the trees in the water and what steps he plans to take if Mr. Wall doesn't remove them in a timely fashion. What will he do to have them removed?
Okay, over to you, Mr. Bear.
Hello, Mark Bear here. It was my understanding at the last meeting that Marla was going to send a letter to Patrick Wall telling him to remove the trees. I just found out he got a letter on 8/6, which is last week. I never got a copy of any letter. No work has been done near the water because every time we go near the water, we get cited. If you want him to take the stuff out of the water, I will call him tomorrow. I'm a surgeon, retired surgeon. I don't take branches out of the water. I don't know how to use equipment. I just hire the people to do it. I'm trying to do what people want me to do. I'm getting very frustrated if you can't tell. 1 minute you want me to cut the stuff down. The last meeting, one of you gentlemen said, take a chainsaw and cut the trees down. And Marla said, no, don't do that. I suggest you read the minutes a little bit closer. There is no branches. I was just over at the property. I see no branches in the water. And I'm not blind. I will have Mr. Wall go there, take his digger and scoop everything right next to the thing and take all the branches out of there for you. That's fine. But I don't want to complain later that he was doing something near the water. It doesn't make sense.
Mr. Bear, you do not want him taking an excavator and excavating out the pond. Takes a grappling hook, throws it out into the water, and drags the whatever branches he can out. You don't take a piece of machinery.
Did you explain that to him then?
And put it in. If he contacts me, I'll be happy to explain it to him.
Okay, that's fine. I don't know how you do these things. I don't do this. It's not my forte. I have no idea. I just hire the people to do this.
Well, it sounds like your contractor doesn't know how to do it either. To be honest with you, the way he handled that site was very poor. I'm sorry, but he came and brought all those stones in where he's going to be building the revetment. I don't know how he's going to build that revetment with those stones in there, but hey, and he put those stones in after he got the notice of violation and after you got the notice of violation. So I don't know how you trust your own contractor.
The stones were brought there. I told you the last time they were taking off another job. They needed a place to put them because they were going to use them in the construction.
It was after the notice of violation was issued. It was after the notice of violation was issued.
Okay,
you had land across the street
the stones.
that you could have put the stones on that wouldn't have ever been even near the water.
Okay, I just want in writing exactly what you want done, not a month late, and then complain. I'm going to tell him tomorrow, take the damn...
In all due respect, this has been going on for 2 months. Mr. Bear, you were on the call on June 9th. In all due respect, it does not take major mechanical equipment to get this debris out of the water. I'm 70 years old, and I could pull a lot of that material out of the water by putting some waders on and getting into the pond. The pond is at the lowest level it's been in years, so that excuse doesn't hold water.
I don't know what excuse you're saying, ma'am, but I said, I don't do that. The contractor's hired to do that. I will tell him tomorrow to go in the pond and pull whatever's in the pond out. That's all I can do.
Commissioner Roach or Obert, and any recommendations, or would that satisfy you or other commissioners as a response to this condition?
My recommendation is that Mr. Wall and Mr. Bear, Dr. Bear, do what they've said they would do for the last 2 months so that we can proceed, with the betterment of the pond to know what steps need to be taken going forward.
Fran Morano, Commissioner, would it be helpful if Mr. Bear and Mr. Wall had a conference call with Marla to get this settled so that everybody's on the same page?
Great, Fran. It's Diane Chapin.
It certainly would make some sense here. It would avoid any cognitive dissonance or lost to communications, and it'd be contemporaneous, everyone on the same page at the same time. So,
Well, I will have Pat Wall call Marla tomorrow. I'll tell him to call her, and
you'll be on the call as well, Mr. Bear?
I'm not technologically real good, but I could try. But I want them to talk and him know exactly what she wants done, how she wants it done. Because I keep telling him to do it for 2 months. It's not that I'm not doing anything. I tell him what I want done, he should do it. I can't be there every day.
We get that, yeah. All right, so we understand then, based on this call, that in this meeting, that in this pending application, that you're going to have your contractor remove in an appropriate way the branches, debris that's in the pond. So that's what I understand you to suggest that you'll do. Marla, you're going to be able to provide guidance or clarification to the contractor as to what, when, how, and why this is done. And commissioners, if that's the case, would that be a step in the right direction, I guess, is a question, because we seem to be here on a...
Charlie Obert here.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, my understanding is that we said it last month and we said it again tonight. We would like that the branches which are in the water largely as a result of, I want to almost say carelessness or lack of consideration. They just dropped when he was working on removing the trees. And so we want him to clean that stuff up and repair the silt fence. And then the application will say, first thing you got to do is build the revetment, and then when that's approved, then you can go forward with everything else. We want it to be systematic. We want it to be thoughtful. We want it to be thoughtful for the neighbors, for Mr. Bear, and for the environment. And it should not be onerous. It should not be difficult to see this done in a timely manner.
All right. So, Commissioner Obert, does any commissioner object to that approach, or do we need a further guidance here to the contractor?
Barbara Roach here. No, I think we've said it enough times. I don't think we have to keep beating this tree, if you will, every meeting. Get it out of the water, fix the fence if necessary. Like we said last month, Dr. Bear, you were on the call. Let's just get it done so we can proceed with the application process.
That's fine. I was under the impression he would get a letter and then he would do the work. I didn't want him doing anything without the letter. And I didn't get a copy of any letter.
Okay.
It was sent to him. But I'm going to tell him tomorrow. He will call Marla tomorrow.
I will call him.
Okay,
You
but
can
I'm gonna
tell
tell him
him
to call you too.
I will call him.
Okay,
All right.
Mhm.
So Marla's going to call the contractor, and of course, Mr. Bear, you'll back up the inland wetlands agent if there's a dispute here. And I guess we don't want to hear about branches in the water when the next meeting rolls around.
I don't either. I don't even see branches. I was just there 2 days ago. I don't see any branches in the water, but it's okay.
Okay, so should be easy to remove them. All right, is there any more on this point? Otherwise, we can move on. Okay, thank you, commissioners. Marla, you'll be speaking to the contractor. Next, old application is WAA 20023, Thomas Murray, 0 Sandam Road, Assessors Map 114, Block 24, Lot 60B, discharge of footing drain associated with the construction of a new single-family home stamped received on 6/18/2020 under review pending receipt of additional information. Do we have our additional information?
Marla Butt speaking. Bruce Woodis is the engineer representing Mr. Murray. And there are actually two applications. They're side-by-side lots.
Oh, that's right.
And they both have the same kind of information on them. There are separate plans in the documents that were posted. And I think I would like Mr. Woodis to explain what response he got from NDDH, not NDDH, the Natural Diversity Database. That letter is dated July 26, 2020. And to Mr. Woodis regarding endangered species in the fen that's located, the wetland system that's located to the south and east of these two lots that are subject to these wetlands agent approval applications. Mr. Woodis?
Yeah, actually, I would prefer that Marla explain what's going on with NDDB on this this application, because I am totally mystified as to their response. So just in general, these are two previously approved subdivision lots. They were surveyed and approved by Alfitz back in 1991. They're located adjacent to each other on Sandam Road. They are both gravel plateaus adjacent to a large swamp that's traversed by the, I believe, the 5 Mile River running through the swamp on its way north as it comes from Little Pond. Okay, so here's one of the lots. What we've done is we've positioned because the approved lots are so old, approved in 1991, we did new testing. And so the soils testing that was done with the health department was done up in the front of the lots adjacent to the road. As I said, it's a gravel plateau, and then it drops off from the plateau about 15 feet to the edge of the swamp. And the entirety, so the plateau area is an open grass field, and the entirety of the slope going down to the wetlands is vegetated with large pine trees, a few deciduous trees, but mostly pine trees on the slope all the way down to the swamp. And then the swamp is vegetated by your typical swamp brush and other species of vegetation. The health department has approved the lot that, Marla, did you bring this up? I don't know who brought this up.
I brought up the exhibit. Which section?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this lot has been approved by the health department. The adjacent lot to the left of it required some minor technical revisions. The depth and degrade was a little bit too deep for the depth of the test pits that were dug. The health department essentially considers if you dig a 8-foot test hole, that there's ledge in the bottom of that hole, unless proven otherwise, and you have to maintain 4 feet above that to the bottom of your septic system. So we've raised the trenches and resubmitted to the health department, and we're waiting approval, which I expect any day now.
Excuse me, Bruce.
Yeah.
George, could you go to page 26? Page 26 is the lot that he's referring to that has the septic. That's the next
Okay,
application.
let me just go to 26.
Sure.
There we go. It's 26. There we
So
go.
this is right adjacent to the one you were just looking at, to the left of it.
Right.
It's again, the house and the septic system are on the plateau. We're coming in from the side with a driveway into a garage and a house. The edge of the swamp is located to the left and to the rear of the development area.
Over
Again,
here.
yes. And again, the entirety of the area to the left of the development and to the rear of the development is completely forested with mature pine trees, right down to the edge of the swamp. So in terms of the project and how it relates to wetlands, we're dealing with well-drained soils, a minimal potential of runoff because of the well-drained soils and the flatness of the sites where the development occurs. On the lot to the right that you showed previously, the only item that was in the 100-foot regulated area was the outlet to the foundation drain. On this particular lot, we're in the regulated area a bit more, but we don't believe that there's any potential for any impact to the wetlands. So this brings us to the NDDB. Marla alerted me that there was, a few species in Jerry's Swamp, as well as this area of wetlands, and that we should contact the NDDB for their opinion, which we've done on some previous applications that we've had up at Quadic and other locations in Thompson. And they responded with a letter that told us that there are some state endangered or threatened species, but most importantly, there's something called a poor fen, which is, I'm just going to paraphrase from the letter.
Excuse me, Bruce.
Yeah.
George, this letter is in the packet of documents. If you scroll back up, you should find it before this site
There
plan.
it is.
Right.
There you go.
Bruce Woods, I've got it here. Here we go.
All right. So down to the next to the last paragraph, she talks about the poor fen being essentially peat, deep, poorly composed peats, dominated primarily by, I don't even know how to pronounce it, ericaceous shrubs,
Ericaceous.
including dwarf shrub thicket, and saturated woodland. And she wants us to maintain a 200-foot vegetated buffer from all wetlands to protect the poor fen. Never seen anything like this in a response from NDDB. Don't know what to make of it. I've discussed it with Marla, and she's done some research on it, and wanted to do more research before contacting Dawn McKay to discuss it. If you had a 200-foot buffer to the edge of the wetlands, it would extend right out to Sandam Road and, in effect, not allow you to build on these approved subdivision building lots. So
George, could you go down one page?
Sure.
Could you move your down one page to see the 200-foot minimum vegetative buffer referenced
Right,
in this
we've got it.
letter.
It's there.
Right there. So Mr. Wooders is correct. The 200-foot minimum vegetative buffer in any wetlands and no herbicides or pesticides, that's almost, they're saying they want it to be prohibitive. They don't want any development within 200 feet. Well, that basically can be tantamount to a taking. And I'm a little concerned. I know that Jerry Swamp is one of the significant wetlands, and that's on the other side of Sand Dam Road, and that has a 200-foot upland review area. So I think I need to do a little more research on this. I'm not sure that they understand what this particular development site is, what the subsoils are, and whether or not this 200-foot minimum vegetative buffer for and no herbicides or pesticides, and not discharge any stormwater into the wetlands or wetland soils, may be a little bit excessive for these two lots, only because of the nature of the lots. But I have to do more research. This is a wetlands agent approval. It's not an individual permit. The work in the upland review area is very minimal. So I'm not quite sure why DEP took this strong stance on these two lots. There are other properties that border this fen that probably are more significant due to their nature, but I'm not sure. I need to talk to Dawn McKay to find out exactly what her thoughts were for these particular two lots.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Marla mentioned to me that the bridge on Sand Dam Road was built, what, about a year ago?
Was replaced.
Was replaced about a year ago. And you received no mention of any concern by Dawn McKay or the NDDB at the time that that bridge was reconstructed, correct?
No, that's correct.
It seems like that would be a far more potential impact on the downstream fen than this development would be.
Well, I'm trying to figure out exactly where she's saying the fen is. So if she's calling the shrub swamp that abuts your proposed development, if she's calling that the poor fen, I need to understand that.
Okay. Well, that's about all I have to
offer.
So
at this juncture, there's no action by the commission required for this. I just wanted you to know that what the issues were.
All right, I thought I heard Commissioner Ober with a question.
Yes, I'm looking at page 22, and I'm seeing that apparently that's the point where there's a drain coming off of the proposed 3-bedroom house from the corner nearest to the garage and heading in towards the wetlands. And I think that would be there. You see it? You see that line?
Foundation drain.
Yep, that seems to be the biggest grounds for offense, offense, not a fence, for offense that could be viewed towards that particular area. But I agree with what Marla said. This is a situation where there's already a lot of development around it, and they're not really going into the wetlands. They're staying pretty far away from it, with the exception of that proposed foundation drain.
Yeah, it's a bit of a hard place, because if you have a basement, you know, your basement elevation and your foundation elevation is going to be around 490, and then in order to get down to daylight with your footing drain or your foundation drain, you have to go towards the wetlands to some extent. But we're talking about a very minimal amount of water, particularly in these well-drained gravel soils. You're probably going to never have any water. I'm not even sure if footing drains would be necessary in, you know, a 15-foot gravel mound with no evidence of high groundwater, at least down to 8 feet where the test holes were dug. We may be able to eliminate the footing drain. But, but regardless of that, I mean, the potential for impact to wetlands from a foundation drain is very, very minimal.
So there's no action required by the commission at this time
Right. With no other
on
comments.
either of these applications.
Right. No further questions by commissioners. We can move on. We should truncate when we list these two, Marla, so that I don't stop reading halfway through. I keep looking, assuming I read it already. All right, moving on to WAA 20025 Madison Avenue Investments, LLC. Madison Avenue, Assessors Map 103, Block 31, Lot 6H, Subdivision Lot 8, construction and discharge footing drain in 100-foot upland review area for new single-family homes, stamped, received on 7/6/2020, issued 7/10/2020, legal notice published on 7/17/2020, appeal period ended on 8/1/2020.
Decision is final on that application.
Okay, there's no other issues. Moving on to number 8, WAA 20026 WBA Real Estate LLC, 22 Woodstock Road, Assessors Map 29, Block 104, Lot 23, septic repair, parking lot improvements, and access road for future site development, stamped received by the town clerk on 7/10/2020, under review.
Marla Butt speaking. If you look at the site plans, there's 4 sheets. Sheet 1 of 4 shows the general layout. This is the building is what used to house the Villager restaurant and the Strand beauty parlor. It has a rock shop in it, and it's going to become Woodstock Building Associates showroom. In the rear of that building is an old gravel travelway parking area, and they want to make modifications to it, improve it, put in some stormwater management features, basically rain gardens to take the runoff, the roof runoff, and take some runoff coming from the parking area and send it to an intermittent water course, which is partially culverted already. Some time ago it was culverted, and they want to discharge that runoff at the outlet of the culvert that's there. This came in as a wetlands agent approval application, and I am requesting that the commission convert it to an individual permit application because the discharge from the stormwater system in the rain gardens is going directly to the water course, which they don't really show because it's on the property of Scott Parker. That was the property that the commission granted an approval for the liquor store that's now there. And this water course is intermittent. It has no flow in it for a good portion of the year. And in addition to that, because of that, I would like the commission to convert this to an individual permit with a receipt date of today. It was stamped, received by the town clerk on 7/10, and excuse me, that the receipt date would have been last month then if it's converted. But I'm still in the process of reviewing this, and J&D, I don't know if Daniel I believe Janet Blanchette of J&D Engineering is the engineer for this. And I do want to talk to Janet Blanchette about this application, but in the meantime, I would like the commission to move to convert it from WAA 20026 to IWA 20026.
I make a motion that we convert this from WAA 20026 to IWA 20026.
I second that motion.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? There's no further
Move the
discussion.
question.
Move the question. All those commissioners, please vote. I guess we use verbally here. Obert, Commissioner Obert.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Roach,
I approve.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Fran.
Aye.
I think I didn't miss anyone, did I? No, I think I missed that. So all in favor, no opposition. The amendment to convert this to IWA 20026 is approved. Anything further on this, Marla?
Nope, I need to review it with the engineer, and she's away on vacation.
All right, thank you. Now on to new applications. We have 6. The first is WAA 20027, Richard and Lynn Skoronsky, 21 Richard Bennett Lane, Assessors Map 137, Block 7, Lot 5. Construct in-ground pool, shed, and driveway paving in the 100-foot upland review area. Stamped receive on 7/14/2020, approved on 8/3/2020. Legal notice to be published on 8/14/2020. Any further action required?
No, but the legal notice did not go out on 8/14, so it's going to be a week later.
I see. So there's no further action on our part then.
No.
Moving on to number 2, WAA 20028, Madison Avenue Investment LLC, Madison Avenue, Assessors Map 103, Block 31, Lot 6C, Subdivision, Lot 3. Construct a new single-family home, stamped received on 8/3/2020. Application returned as no work was proposed in wetlands, watercourses, or 100-foot upland review area.
Marla Butt speaking. I got a check along with this application for $550 to cover 5 lots on Madison Avenue. Lot 3 didn't involve any regulated activities, and so I returned the application by mail and the check for $550 because it was the wrong amount. And then asked through the engineer that Mr. Meehan of Madison Avenue Investments LLC forward individual permits for each of the individual 4 remaining applications that were coming in or had been in. And I have received the 4 checks. And those are the 3 subsequent applications that you see for Lot 5, Lot 6, Lot 11. I did not yet have Lot 18 by the time this agenda was posted, and I hadn't gotten it even as of yesterday. So the next 3 wetlands agent approval applications are all pending and under review.
All right, so we can consider those already addressed. 3, 4, and 5, WAA 20029, 30, and 31. They're all the same condition. All right, then moving on to WAA 20032, David Popolowski, 1247 Thompson Road, Assessors Map 116, Block 24, Lot 12. Reconstruct single-family home, septic system, and driveway in 100-foot upland review area, stamped received on 8/3/2020, under review.
That's correct. I'm still reviewing it. I haven't made any decisions on it yet.
All right. So that's all we had for new applications. Any applications received after agenda was published?
No.
Permit extensions, I see none. Violations and pending enforcement actions are the next section. And the first is cease and restore order violation 20003, Scott Josie, 637 East Thompson Road, Assessors Map 154, Block 5, Lot 14. Filing of wetlands and work within 100-foot upland review area, issued on 3/5/2020. Hearing and decision on 3/10/2020. Soil scientist report submitted on 5/10/2020. Approved, and work to be completed by 9/15/2020. Do we have any further action or updates on this?
No, not at this time. At some point, when I'm doing field work, I'm going to take a look and see what progress has been made, if any, but there's no requirement yet to have it done.
Okay, moving on then. Item B, violation 20013. Adrienne Martin and Joseph Fagan, 208 Linehouse Road, Assessors Map 36, Block 70, Lot 7. Clear cutting of trees and earth moving work in 100-foot upland review area. Notice of violation issued on 5/14/2020 to remove the slash. Pull back the soil along the eastern property boundary to a grade no steeper than 3:1 by 6/1/2020, and immediately following the completion of this work, seed and mulch all disturbed soils. 7/14/2020 granted extension to 10/1 for completion of work. Any further activity there?
No, no.
Okay, item C would be violation 20018, Mark Bear, 1227 Thompson Road, Assessors Map 116, Block 24, Lot 10. Clear cutting trees and earth moving work in 100-foot upland review area for Little Pond. Notice of violation issued on 5/27/2020 to cease tree cutting and earth moving work, install ENS controls, and by 6/30/2020 provide written explanation for work done and scheduled for submitting application. So we've already discussed a number of these elements. Is there anything further to discuss on this?
Not on 18, but on violation 20019, Patrick Wall. You have a copy of the letter that I sent to Patrick Wall, dated August 6th, 2020, with a CC to Mark Bear. And Mr. Bear's letter probably went out a couple of days later, that I recall. So that's maybe why he feels he didn't get it. And with the power outages, I don't know if that disrupted the mail delivery at all for anybody.
Okay, I posted or put on the screen the letter dated August 6th, 2020, which was a couple of days ago.
Charlie Obert here. I do know that the postal service was interrupted if it had to be routed through Hartford. And a lot of our mail does go that way before it comes back. Silly as it sounds, but that's what they do. So there is a chance that it just got hung up in that as a result of the storm.
I know my mail's slow for sure. And I just have to find the local box versus the regional. Otherwise, it goes from Thompson to Hartford and back again. So anything further comments on this, or are we ready to move on? All right. So the next item is violation 20033. Jennifer Burlingame and Robert Lemieux Jr., 480 Aquatic Town Farm Road, Assessors Map 158, Block 20, Lot 8K, filling, earth moving within 100-foot upland review area and possibly within delineated wetlands. Notice of violation issued on 8/6/2020 to cease any further moving or work, and by August 20th, 2020, provide an explanation for the earthwork moving and the reason why an approval was not sought prior to the initiation of work within the 100 feet of delineated wetlands. So this is, let me just pull this up. Well, you'll give me a moment here, because I think we have some graphics with this, don't we?
Yes.
Okay, let me just pull
and a
this up.
photograph.
And a photograph, yes. Let me just, give me one moment while I do some clicking. And this will probably have to load. So there's.
What you're seeing on your screen here is a photograph submitted by Rick DeRochers to me, showing the fill embankment from, I presume, near his property boundary line. And it shows a truck, and that truck I have seen when I've driven by on the street. There is a map, if you go up one page on the PDF file,
Just done
that
that, yes.
was filed on the land records. This map was a map as a result of a property line adjustment done a number of years ago. Mr. DeRocher was the developer of this property originally and bought back from the property owner of the house some of the land that had originally been sold with the house. And to do that, he ended up having the wetlands delineated. And the map that you see there shows a 50-foot upland review area. And the filling has occurred to the, if you're looking at the screen, to the bottom of that stone retaining wall, that semicircular stone retaining wall. And so it's clearly within the 100-foot upland review area because the house, that's a pool.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Retaining
the,
wall is to the
below it?
south, below it. It's down. The retaining wall, stone retaining, that's the upland review area, 50
Okay, I
foot.
can't quite make it out here. Mine's foggy. Is this it here?
No, that's tree line.
Okay.
That
Where are we here?
first line that you drew there, George, there's a semicircular.
Oh, I see it. I see it. You're right.
coming off the
Okay.
bottom of the pool.
There it is, right here.
Yep.
Okay.
There you go.
That retaining wall appears to still be there. And the filling is located towards the words existing, is that tree line, existing?
It's a bit
Says
muddy. Yeah,
existing.
it's kind of hard.
Yeah, it's a little muddy. I believe it says existing tree line.
Okay.
So the filling has occurred along that tree line. So when you look at that photograph, it appears to be in that area. The question is did it go in the wetlands or not? But it's private property and I'm not going to enter onto private property, which is why I sent the letter the way I did and asked them just to explain what was going on and try to get an understanding of what they were doing and what their intent was. It was only some fill in the upland review. Technically, it's a regulated activity, and I'm not sure what their intentions are for the future, for future filling. And at this juncture, I'm hoping that whatever they have decided to do, they finished what they were deciding to do. Otherwise, we'll have to find out exactly what it is they ultimately want to do, and if they are planning on filling the wetlands, because those are delineated wetlands by a soil scientist. And they're filed on the land record.
Okay. So do we have a response?
I'm just waiting for a response. I haven't gotten a response yet. That was sent by certified mail, and I haven't gotten a response yet. I did send Jennifer Burlingame a copy of the agenda, I believe it was. So that she would, if she had looked at the agenda, she would see that it was on the agenda. I have her email address from past actions with Mr. DeRocher.
And she's not present now at this time.
I don't believe so. I'll look.
All right.
So
I
nothing
guess you're
required by you
waiting-
at this time.
Yeah, you're waiting a response. There's only 10 of us here. All right. No other violations. That concludes this. You're waiting a response then from Ms. Burlingame and Mr. Lemieux. Other business. Under other business, we have protocol for emergency work in wetlands and watercourses by Public Works Department. Molly, maybe you could give us a little background on this, or?
Yes, I can. A written protocol for emergency work in wetlands and watercourses by the Public Works Department is being developed as a result of complaint 10-20 involving the riprap of the French River at Riverside Park by Public Works earlier this year. Following an inquiry by former wetlands agent Judy Rondo, I conducted an inspection on June 9th, 2020, that revealed a substantial portion of the eastern bank of the French River at Riverside Park between the Main Street Bridge, just past the gazebo, north to the past the gazebo, had recently been riprap. Public Works Director Richard Benoit told me that the Public Works staff had riprapped the embankment on an emergency basis without advance contact to the Wetlands Office because the bank erosion was threatening the sidewalk. I've questioned this assessment. He had no photos prior to conducting the work which would document the emergency, nor did he have an explanation as to why he had not contacted the Wetlands Office in advance of the work. The French River has a FEMA designated floodway at this location, and to the best of my knowledge, Public Works did not enlist the services of a professional engineer for guidance on the work performed to ensure that the work to be performed would meet standard engineering practices, remain stable during flooding events, and not violate the FEMA prohibitions for fill in the floodway. As a result, First Selectman Amy St. Ange is working with the Wetlands Office, and also that is myself and Jared O'Neill, to develop written protocol for consideration by the Inland Wetlands Commission on how to address future emergencies requiring work in wetlands and watercourses by the Public Works Department. The protocol is expected to include requirements for documenting the emergency conditions prior to any work being performed. The notifications that are required has to get consent by the first selectman prior to the work being performed, and subsequent notification of the Wetlands Office for after the fact authorization. At this juncture, the language is being worked out. We don't have final language. Some language has been submitted to Amy at this time, and we're just waiting for a response back to see how she feels about the language that she was given.
So essentially what you're looking at is, exigent circumstances and emergencies. The highway department needs to, step in, and Public Works have to step in and do something. We're trying to craft a guideline so that there's a working document, procedures that can protect property and life safety without going astray on the Watercourses Act and the issues that we deal with. So, thank you. Reports, budget and expenditures.
Okay, budget. We have expended in this previous month $1,779.14, which represents 7.1% of our budget. Available budget is $23,957.86, and that appears to be salary for Marla and secretary. Is that correct, Marla?
Correct,
It looks like, yeah.
for the most part.
Oh, yeah, for the most part. Looks like it.
All right, thank you, Diane.
You're welcome.
Wetlands agent report.
Okay, on updates, there's been no change in the court appeal on application IWA 15029. That was River Junction Estates LLC. It's the same as last month. It was argued back in March and it's still pending. On the MS4 annual reports and follow-up actions, the completion of the report is still pending. Contracts have been entered into for fiscal year 1920. There are now contracts needed for fiscal year 2021. And I'll be working with Kelly Jennis to develop those, to process those contracts for this current fiscal year. On the file destruction plan, I've made absolutely no progress. For inspections and follow-up actions on complaint 20-05, that was the report of dumping of pony manure in wetlands off of Hiawatha Drive that drains to Craddock Reservoir. Carolyn Wurge has conducted an initial review. miscellaneous debris dumped by parties unknown on the town property. This property pretty much was acquired from non-payment of taxes, so there are no conservation easements on it. Carolyn and I need to do a coordinated inspection to determine the next course of action. We're trying to figure out whether or not material should be removed or whether they should just put up a barricade and prevent people from doing any further dumping at that location. On complaint 2009, that was flooding problems at 361 Brandy Hill Road caused by street drainage. Information was provided by NDDH regarding setback requirements for potential culverts, and that has been forwarded to the Selectman's office. The point of contact is now the Selectman's office for the resolution of this problem. I'll be willing to help any way I can. If they need me, they'll be able to contact me. On complaint 20-10, riprapping of the French River, I don't plan any action at this time with the expectation that an acceptable emergency operations protocol is put into place for any future work. Regarding building permits, I reviewed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 building permits of various natures. There's no miscellaneous issues that I have, and there were purchase orders, encumbrances for legal notices for Madison Avenue, and all the others that were paid were for legal notices. Legal notices have gotten more expensive, and so when the regulations do get revised, we had talked a couple of months ago about a new fee structure to cover the costs. Those costs are going to have to be increased because the legal notices have almost doubled in their price. What used to cost about $22 is now $44. So.
Wow.
And that's it.
Thank you, Marla. Correspondence?
Nothing.
Signing of Mylars? None.
None.
Comments by commissioners?
I have no additional comments.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Roach, Commissioner Obert.
I have no additional comments. I will tell Marla that if she would like somebody to accompany her when she goes out and looks at things, give me a call, give me 24 hours notice, I can probably make it.
Yes, I will take you up on that. I do have some field work that I have to do. I'll be going up to Mr. Bear's property and also to talk to Mr. Harger, who's next door, about the trees that he has that he's interested in having removed from the Bear property. And there's a couple of other sites that I need to look at. So yeah, I appreciate your offer.
Hey. Thank you, Commissioner Obert. Commissioner Champion
All set.
and Commissioner Marino.
Well set.
All right. So with all the business completed, I think we should adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, made and seconded. No discussion. This meeting is adjourned at 8:54 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Thank you.
You're welcome.